Hello everyone, in this module we are going to learn the logical and comparison operators in NumPy. First we will discuss what are logical operators and we will see how to compute the truth values by using different logical functions in NumPy. Next we will discuss how to compare elements in a NumPy by using different types of comparison functions. Now we will understand what are logical operators. Logical operators are generally used for combining two or more relational statements. They always return a boolean values, and the logical operators are used to calculating the logical relations between two NumPy arrays. It will also check the condition whether the relation between two arrays is true or false. So NumPy provides mainly four logical operators. Now let us briefly understand these logical operators and check how we can use these logical functions in the NumPy array. The first one function is NumPy logical AND function. So basically this is a mathematical function that is used to perform the logical AND operation on the NumPy array. This function takes the input array as an argument and it must have the same shape. It calculates the truth value of array 1 and array 2 element wise. So this is the function name which we are going to use in our example, that is numpy.logical AND function. And within this function we will take only three parameters, x1 and x2. These parameters are utilized to specify the input arrays, and between these values the logical AND will be performed. Now we will discuss the truth table of logical AND operations between two arrays. As you can see from the table, the condition array 1 and array 2 only returns true if both conditions evaluate to true. Next, if the array 1 value is true and the second input array value is false, then it will return a false value. So if the value of input array 1 is false and same in the case of input array 2 value is false, then it will return a false value. Now we will see an example of using the numpy.logical AND function. Here I have taken an example, and in this example first I have imported the NumPy library with the alias name np. After that we created a one-dimensional array with boolean values and then used the logical AND function between two NumPy arrays, and within these arrays you can pass any values as an argument. But in this example I have only used the boolean values, but you can take values as a boolean value, numerical value, or a combination of both values. After using this function, it will check the condition. If the value of the first input array is true, and in the same case if the value of the second array is true, then it will return a true value. Now let us understand how we can take both numeric and boolean values in an input array. But before this we are going to learn the truth table of numpy.logical AND function. So in the given table we have taken both boolean and numeric values in an input array. So it will check the condition. If the value of the first input array is an integer and the second input array is the boolean value, then it will return a boolean value, and in this case that value is true. So if the input values are integer in both the cases, then it will return a boolean value that is always true. Now let us discuss another example by using np.logical AND function. So in this example we have created two NumPy arrays by using the np.array function that contains both numerical and boolean values. It will check the condition. If the values are non-zeros, then it will return the true value, and if it is zero values, then it will return always the false value. Now I am going to execute this code. So after executing this code, the output comes the logical operation between boolean values, and the values are there. Now we will understand our next function, that is numpy.logical OR function. So this function is used to calculate the truth value of array 1 or array 2 element wise. But the important thing is the array must have the same shape. So the following given table is the truth table of logical OR operations on two arrays. If the input array 1 value is true, and in same case if the input array 2 value is false, and then it will return a true value. Same in the case if the value is false in input array 1 and input array 2 value is false, then it will return a false value. So this is the function name, that is numpy.logical OR function, and within this function we have already discussed about these parameters in numpy logical AND function. Now we will see an example of a numpy.logical OR function. In this example we are going to use the logical OR function between two NumPy arrays, and within these arrays you can pass any values as an argument. But in this example we have assigned only a boolean values. You can take values as a boolean and as well as numeric values. So after using this function, it will check the condition. If the value of the first input array is true, and in the same case if the value of the second input is false, then it will return a true value. So as you can see that in this example we have take a true value in first input array, and same in the case we have take false value. So after executing this code, it will return a true value. Now let us understand the next function, that is NumPy logical not function. Basically the NumPy logical not is a NumPy library function that calculates the result of not array for every element of an array, and it will return the result in the form of a new array. The logical not function computes the truth value of not array element wise. Remember one thing, if the input array is empty, this method returns an empty array, and the array must be have the same shape. So here is the syntax of numpy.logical not function, and within this function there are few parameters we are going to use in our example. The first parameter is x. This parameter indicates the input array, and the next parameter is out. It is an optional parameter, and by default it takes none value, and it specifies the location where the result must be stored. Now let us see an example of how to use the NumPy logical not function with an integer values as an argument. I have taken an example, and in this example we have used the np.array function for creating an array with list1 name. Within this array we have assigned the numerical integer values. Next we have used the np.logical not function, and it will check the condition. If the input array 1 has a false value, and same in the case input array 2 has a false value, then it will return a true value. For example, in numerical, if the value is 1, and same in the case if the value is 1, then it will return a 0. Now we will understand our last function, that is logical XOR function. So basically this function will help the user to calculate the truth value of the input array 1 XOR array 2 element wise. So in this case both the input arrays must have the same shape. So this is the truth table of logical XOR operation. In this table we have checked that if the input array 1 value is false, and the same in the case if the input array 2 value has false, then it will return the false value. Suppose if the value is false and the second input array value is true, then it will return a true value. Now let us take an example and understand the working of numpy.logical XOR function. So in this example we have created two input arrays by using the np.array function, and within this function we have assigned the boolean values as an argument. After this we have used the np.logical XOR function and pass in input arrays as an argument, that is bool values and truth values. So as you can see that in the first input array we have assigned a true value, and in second input array we have assigned a false value. So after executing this code it displays true value. Now we will understand what are comparison operators in NumPy. So basically comparison operators in NumPy are used to compare the input array elements, and it will always return only a boolean value, that is true or false. For example, we will compare the value of x to the value of y and print the result in true or false. So in this example our value of x is equal to 4, which is smaller than y, that is 5. So when we print the value as x is greater than y, then it actually compares the value of x to y, and it is always returns a false, because we have taken x is equal to 4 and y equals to 5. So these are the functions that are used in NumPy arrays. Now let us briefly understand these functions in NumPy array. The first function is numpy.greater. This function will return the truth value of an input array, and it will check the condition of whether input array is greater than input array 2 or not. So here is the syntax of numpy.greater function, and within this function we have taken only 3 parameters. The first 2 parameter is x1 and x. It indicates the input array, and the array must be have the common shape. The next parameter is out. It specifies the location where the result must be stored. Now let us see an example of how to use the numpy.greater function with an integer value as an argument. So in this example we have created an input array by using the np.array function, and then use the np.greater function and assign the input array as an argument. So in this example the input array is product ID and the customer ID. After using the np.greater function, it will check the condition. If the product ID value is greater than the customer ID, if it is greater than, then it will return true, otherwise it will return a false. So after using the numpy.greater function, now we are going to discuss about numpy.greater equal function. So basically this function is available in the NumPy package, and it will check the condition. If the input array 1 is greater than equal to array 2, then it will return true, otherwise it will return a false value. So this is the function name, that is numpy.greater equal, and within this function it takes only 3 parameters. Now let us see an example of how to use the numpy.greater equal function with an integer value as an argument. So in this example we have created an array named as COVID cases 2020, and the second input array is COVID cases 2021 with integer values as an argument. Next we have used the np.greater equal function and assign input arrays as an argument. So after executing this code, the output comes an array and it displays a value that is false because the first input array is smaller than the second input array. Now we will understand our next function, that is numpy.less. So basically this function will check the condition whether the values in an input array is less than a number or not. If it is true, then it will return a boolean value, otherwise it will return a false value. Now let us see an example of how to use numpy.less function with an integer value as an argument. So in this example we have created two input arrays. The first one input array is Fahrenheit by using the np.array function, and within this function we have assigned the numerical integer values. So after creating an arrays, we have used the np.less function, and within this function we have assigned both input arrays. The first one input array is Fahrenheit and the second one input array is Celsius. After executing this code, the output comes in the order of boolean values. The first value is true because the first input array value is 78 and the second value is 189, which is greater than first input array. Now we will understand what exactly is np.less equal function. So basically this function is used to check the input array is less than or equal to the second input array. If it is true, then it will return the boolean value true, otherwise it will return a false value. So now in this example we have created two input arrays. The first one is number of departments and the second one is number of employees. In both the case we have assigned the numeric integer values. So after using this function numpy.less equal, we have assigned both these input arrays as an argument. So after executing this code, the output comes in the order of boolean values. Now we will understand our last function, that is numpy.equal function. This function basically used to compare the array elements, and it will check the condition whether this function is used to compare the array elements, and it will check the condition whether each value in an input array is equal to the second input array or not. So in this example we have used the np.array function for creating an array and assign integer values. So after using the np.equal function, we have assigned both the input array as an argument. So after executing this code, the output comes in the order of boolean values. The first value is true because the input value is 78 and second input value is 78. They both are equal, so it will return a true value. So with this we have completed logical and comparison operators in NumPy.